What's up, everybody? Whenever you see me with my safari hat, just know I was story hunting, and I came across a crazy story. I'll just read you the title, and we'll hop directly into this one. Dad. He caught mom cheating. She was stealing money from father to gamble with her affair partner. Well, get this, she's now homeless, but she has this to say. I'm 18, female. I'm a high school graduate and the only child of a wealthy family. My father is a CFO at an e-commerce company and also an investor in many startups. My grandparents, they were wealthy landlords down south, so he inherited a lot of money along with my uncle when they passed away. He met my mother in college, and after a lot of fights and making up, they got married. My mother came from a relatively affluent family as well, and she was always the queen of the household. Even her parents warned my dad about marrying her since it meant he could never be in control of his personal life again. They moved to LA after their wedding, and I've grown up there ever since. 2 months ago, I found out that my mother has been stealing from my dad, and I don't know how to approach him about it. This has all started when my dad lost his credit card. We searched through the entire house, but late at night I went through my mother's purse searching for lip balm and found it. I didn't want to wake them up, so I thought I would wait until the morning, and I woke up late the next day to the shouting of my dad. When I ran downstairs, he and my mom were having a huge argument, and they stopped when they saw me entering the kitchen. My dad set me down with my mother and asked me why I had stolen his credit card. Well, I was confused at first when I saw the look on my mom's face. I thought this must have been some surprise. She was planning to gift my dad on his upcoming birthday, so I made up some sort of story. My dad did not buy it, and the card was swiped at a casino. I was shocked and kept quiet, staring at my mother, and she interrupted his lecture and told him that she would take care of it. My father left and told me that the card would be blocked so I could not ruin his hard-earned money. I waited until he left and started shouting at my mother. It turns out she was the one who found it in the morning and could not bear Dad. Well, after he saw the automated message that was delivered saying the card had spent nearly $100,000. You see, it was a black card, so it technically did not have a limit, and my mom told me that it was a one-time thing and she was forced to join the poker table with her friends. She did not want to tell Dad since he hated gambling and everything related to it. I told her I would take this hit for her this one time, and if he scolded me again, it would be me. Well, it's going to be some trouble for her. Later that week, I left for my college. I'd gotten into Yale, so I was moving out, and my dad did not speak to me for the entire week, and it hurt me a lot. But he flew with me to college, hugged me, and apologized for my shouting, and told him I would never do it again and that I had learned my lesson. A month later, I get a message from my dad saying that he wanted to meet me, so I sat on the lawn and waited for him. The sun was setting on a warm evening as I sat on the porch with my eyes fixed, waiting for my father's car to appear. It had been a long day at college with a lot of reading and assignments to catch up on. When my father finally pulled up, exhaustion etched on his face. I could see a mixture of anger and sadness in his eyes. He stepped out of the car, and his footsteps were heavy, and made his way towards the lawn that I was sitting at. "Hey, Dad," I said cautiously, unsure of how to approach the situation. He sighed deeply and sat down beside me, and his gaze fixed on the ground, and after a moment of silence, he turned to me and spoke with a heavy heart.
Honey, your mother and I, we're getting a divorce."
His words hit me like a punch in the gut. I had expected something was amiss, but the reality of it all sent shockwaves through me. I looked at my father, his strong presence now crumbling before my eyes. I wanted to ask a million questions, but none of them formed coherently enough to be uttered.
I found out that she had been stealing money from me to gamble, and I don't know how to say this, but there were other men involved.
He continued with his voice tinged to bitterness.
I couldn't believe it, but there was undeniable evidence, sweetie. I had to confront her, and when I did, she did not deny it."
His assistant and accountant had traced all the cards and money withdrawals, then caught her red-handed in the act. Tears welled up in my eyes as I listened to my father's painful details. My once picture-perfect family was crumbling, torn apart by lies and deceit. I could not fathom how my mother, whom I'd always looked up to, could betray us like this. I wanted to tell him about the card incident before I left home too, but before I could start, he asked me,
"Hey, tell me the truth. That black card, that swipe that day, it wasn't you, was it?"
I just nodded. He knew, and he just wanted to confirm and comfort me, and the only person he could actually trust in this world. In the weeks that followed, our home became a battleground of emotions. My parents fought bitterly over finances, custody, and the shattered trust that could never be mended. I got a torrent of calls and messages from relatives and family friends who were picking sides. They wanted to know the whole story and hoped I could clear it up for them. The incident also became a scandal in the news, since my father goes around giving talks about the nature of investments and the economy. Soon enough, even my college had turned into the same gossip I was sure my father was facing all around him. As the divorce proceedings moved forward, it became evident that my mother's action had led deep scars right onto my family. You see, the divorce proceedings were also messy, with our family lawyer picking my mother's side to defend. During the legal process, it was revealed that my mother had been involved in an elaborate web of deception. She had taken out loans in my father's name, maxed out a couple of credit cards, and emptied a few bank accounts to fuel her gambling addiction. The money she stole from my father, it was around $1 million. This was not only to satisfy her desires, but also to support her affair partner. My dad also hired a private detective who revealed that the affair had been going on for more than a year before the first gambling withdrawals were made. This broke my father's love for my mother and transformed into a potent mix of anger, disappointment, and heartache. He fought tooth and nail to ensure that he got her fined and hopefully sent to jail for her actions, though the court ruled in my father's favor and it left my mom with absolutely nothing to sustain herself. The jail time was negligible, so before I would finish my first year at college, she would be out roaming the streets. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. It looks like that of a family drama. The first update came out 3 months after the original post, and I have it here for you right now. If you guys are new to the channel, the best way to support it is so simple. Hit that subscribe button for daily videos. It's right underneath this video, and it's free. Hit the subscribe button, and let's jump into update number 1. My grandmother, Mom's mother, came to visit me at college. It was exam time and end of semester rush at college, and also due to my first month being almost used up going back and forth from home to college to support my father, I was really behind on deadlines. So I told her that I could not spend much time talking, and we met at my uncle's place, which was near my college as well. I had not been to my relative's house in so long due to the divorce drama. I had no idea what the rest of the family thought about the whole thing, especially my mother's side. I went there for dinner and would leave the next morning, and my grandmother started off by asking me about college and my ambitions, and I told her everything. And then she slowly started talking about my mother's childhood and upbringing. Well, I was extremely uncomfortable. This was the first time after the shocking news that I had heard anything non-negative spoken about her. My grandmother was tracing my mother's desires for control over the years, and then she told me how it curdles into a desire for a high. She had not spoken to my mother after the court decision, and they had a fight which turned into a barrage of insults in a public setting, and this was enough for my grandmother to completely cut contact with her daughter. She was a woman with a strong sense of respect and dignity, and my uncle and aunt had helped my father during and after the court proceedings and comforted him through the whole process. I was in tears. After the divorce, I did not think I could ever feel the warmth of home again, but here it was. My people supporting me, and we sat all night talking about everything, even though I had an exam to attend the next afternoon. Update number 2. A year has gone by. Guys, 2 days ago, I ran into a stranger who recognized me outside of Popeyes. She introduced herself as Mary, who was friends with my mother when I lived in Los Angeles. She had changed a lot since those days with plastic surgery and dieting and, overall good health. She looked like a completely different person, and she asked me how I was doing at college and about my father. I told her as little as I could. I really didn't like the overbearing, nosy vibe that she brought about. Then out of the blue, she told me that she had run into my mother a week ago. With every single cell inside my body wanting to know what had happened to her, I told Mary I did not care. That our lives have diverged and I'm in a relatively safe mental space, and she just laughed and gave me her number in case I wanted to meet her someday. I just smiled and walked away, trying to think of a justification for hearing the story. After being frustrated for 2 days straight, I called her up today and asked her if she could meet me. She sensed I was curious and agreed, and we met at the Starbucks, where she told me a story that I simply could not believe. When the divorce finalized, my mother's life took a downward spiral. When she left her family, her actions caught up with her, leaving her with a mountain of debt and reputation tarnished by her reckless behavior. She became a pariah in our local community, and the friends she once had turned their backs on her. She was turning to more and more sketchy characters who led her down some very dark paths. She had, since the divorce, already had 2 kids from different fathers and was trying to find a home. I was too stunned to say anything, so I just let her continue. You see, she had been working minimum wage jobs, just trying some sorts of way to keep the kids and herself afloat, while her partners were involved in some very shady business. She also had a couple of bruises, according to Mary, which she thought were signs of physical abuse by her partners. Stripped of her material possessions and consumed by her vices, my mother was left with nothing but her own remorse. She had lost her family, her home, and her dignity. All in the pursuit of monetary thrill. Her choices and consequences, they were equal. That reverberated far beyond her own. This broke my heart. I was ugly crying at a Starbucks while Mary quickly got us out, and I did not want to go back to my college dorm, so I called my father up in tears, asking if I could take a break from college for a semester and go to therapy, and he agreed and promised me he would do the same. I have already sent my department head and college dean the official email asking to skip this semester and continue my education next year. I hope I get the approval. Even if I don't, I will leave. I cannot stay here. I feel so sick and afraid, and I don't mind running away if it means I can heal and try the battles of life once more. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. So I do want to tell you something very interesting. There's 3 updates left, but these next 3 updates span over a decade. That's right, I had to do some digging, but apparently this story goes so far back, we're talking about a 10-year span. So the first update, update number 3, is 2 years after update number 2, but just stay tuned because update number 4 is crazy. The previously mentioned break I took helped me tremendously. The first month was the hardest and everything inside me felt brittle and would shatter at a scream. But I kept working on myself and going to therapy regularly. Even my dad stopped his intense work trips and schedules just to relax and take in the incidents of the past year. The therapist at the start had prescribed antidepressants. My father was even diagnosed with anxiety and could not give his normal talks anymore. I told him about what I heard from Mary, and I saw his heart shatter into 1,000 pieces. This was, the love of his life after all. The girl he had fought for and married against his late parents' wishes, and she was the queen of his life for nearly 2 decades. And just like that, when he was 45, she was gone. In the aftermath of my parents' divorce, my father worked tirelessly to rebuild his reputation. The gossip and circles and the media especially had made him a laughingstock. I went back to school after just 6 months and worked my heart out to finish my degree in law. I really hope that my mother, even after all the heartbreak, can find a solid home. Well, everyone makes mistakes, but she was adamant and egotistical about it, and that cost her the entire life she had built. I hope that her path can take a different turn, alone and destitute, and she has hit rock bottom, facing the harsh realities of her choices. Update number 4, a decade later. Guys, yesterday, well, how do I say this? I met my mother after work. After college, I worked at a law firm in New York where we provided legal defense for businesses and multinational companies. I'm still a junior, but I've already worked as a paralegal on many important cases. My father's companies are also our clients, and one of them owns a large collection of low-end housing in the suburbs. The company had a lawsuit filed against them by numerous tenants for bad maintenance, excessive rent increases, and numerous other claims. The lawsuit had the support of nearly 200 people, with nearly 15 willing to testify in court about the harassment they allegedly faced while staying at those apartments. This case was looking scary to me since the other side had the proper political support of an up-and-coming leader as well. He had promised them justice against the big businesses, and after a lot of our own investigating, we discovered that there was no way to win the case if the tenants did decide to testify. So, as a last-ditch attempt, we decided to meet the victims to discuss settlements, and one of the victims who walked into our meeting room was no other than my mother. She had grown thin over the years, but her eyes were bright and she looked paler than I remembered, and this was the first time I saw her since the court's decision. She was shocked to see me too, and she had no idea how to start the conversation, but her lawyer and my colleague were discussing terms and amounts of the settlement. Well, we just spoke through her eyes, and I was surprised I did not feel like running away. I sat down after the meeting and gave her my number to contact me, and she smiled and walked away sheepishly. I told my colleague I was done for the day and walked out. My first instinct was to call my dad since he was in town searching for a nice apartment where both he and I could stay. I told him I was going to meet Mom. He went silent and asked me to send him the location so he could pick me up after. He was very not interested like I thought he would be. He actually closed the chapter of that life a long time ago, and seeing her again would simply reopen a lot of pain for him. I understood, and I let it go. I don't know how this meeting will go. I hope I can, if not forgive, at least understand why she made these horrendous decisions. Update number 5. This is the final update. Today I met my mother. The case that she was part of was settled and all the victims signed NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. The client also got a warning, but all in all, justice was served. My mother called me the very night, but we both did not know how to start the conversation. So we decided to meet at Central Park and simply talk it out there. We met around 5 p.m. and I was nervous the whole day, trying to think of a way to ask her about her life. I could not help not eating all day, or much focus on work. My mother had bought me some sandwiches and had come with 2 kids. I guess they were hers, and it turns out she's a caretaker at an orphanage and school. The 2 kids were my half-siblings, who played around me, then she opened up about her life. After the divorce, her boyfriend gambled every last penny both of them had in the span of 2 months only. This led him to owing money to loan sharks who came searching for her. At this point, she had decided to run away to Vegas, where her boyfriend was hiding. But this turned out to be a lie, and she was basically sold by him to the people he owed money to. She tried to run away, but it was useless. The men then stationed her as a waitress at their strip club. During this time, she had gone through so much trauma that she just wanted a way out. So she believed lying men and tried to build lives with them. But it all fell apart too quickly, and many of the men she dated even went to jail. My stepbrothers were the result of such tumultuous relationships. After almost giving up hope, she met a drunk customer who had passed out at her establishment, and it turns out he was a teacher who was going through a divorce himself.
He and my mother hit it off, but she was still weary of men after all the incidents in her life. But he proved himself to be a capable man, and she paid her debt back in 5 years and moved away from California completely. She now lives with him, with her kids, and is a caretaker at the school where he teaches. I cried my heart out listening to her. Well, and she wept too. She apologized for abandoning me and my father, and she also hoped she could apologize to him, but I told her he did not want any of that. She asked me if he had remarried. I told her no, but he has a girlfriend, but it's too early to say if they're going to marry. Well, I finally saw my mother again after nearly a decade, and I'd forgiven her for her betrayal and destruction of our family, and I felt like she deserved a second chance. She had made a mistake and tried to cover it up through lies and deceit. But life taught her a very harsh lesson regarding all of it, and I simply promised her I would keep in touch with her, and she saw my father walk towards us at that time. He just completely ignored her and just told me to hurry up. I could see it hurt him, but she bared it.
Okay, guys, so this story had some interesting comments. A lot of people were actually split about who was suffering the most in the story. Yeah, I understand OP's mother was basically homeless. She went through a very rough patch. She lost a lot of people in her life. But there was commenters saying, hey, a lot of that stuff she brought on herself. The one who suffered the most here was OP's father, who was diagnosed with anxiety, had to go to therapy, counseling, and lost a bunch of money, lost the love of his life, and basically was depressed. So there was about a split 50-50 in the comment section arguing, saying who really had it the worst. So I want to leave that with you guys. What do you think, or should I say, who do you think suffered the most in this story besides OP? Drop it in the comment section down below, but hey, if you think OP suffered the most, let me know. I hope you guys enjoyed the story. If you want daily videos, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I got some stories to go hunt. Just remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya.